Welcome to the Radio Wall Street. I'm Alicia Frischberg. With me is Daniel Frischberg, the Money Man, and Amory Bowden. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Amory Bodine.
Amory Bowden. Good morning.
Every day.
All right, the market, Daniel. Market X-ray.
All right. Well, look. Right now the stock market is down a little bit, and you may wonder why is it down a little bit.
Amory, do you have an idea?
Oh, excuse me. Right now, I just see that there's unsettledness in the market, and that when you look at the Nasdaq and the New York Stock Exchange, it's just floating back and forth between some ranges. I don't see a lot of strong volume that's going on.
You see, this is exactly here's what's happening. The world is watching this short-term movement of the market, and there's a reason for people doing that, but it's not because they know how to make money. It's because they're mammals and they have to eat every few hours, and they're evolved to think in those kinds of short time frames. So what's actually what I see is that these companies, many of them are becoming less valuable because they're losing to competition, but others are consistently becoming more valuable. Their markets are opening up. Biotechnology, I spent a lot of time last night while I was watching the basketball games. I was also studying all these little biotechnology and big biotechnology companies and what it is they're doing and what diseases they're curing. And there's no question about it. They're doing this on a scale that's never happened before. The world absolutely insists on having these cures for your eyes tearing, for your heart murmur, for skin cancer, for colon cancer, all of these things that they're actually figuring out how to cure with these advanced remedies. And they're testing them, and a lot of them are already working. They've figured out how to cure AIDS. Now they've figured out how to cure hepatitis C. The world demands and will have these things. So the companies that do it are becoming more valuable every day. They're not chopping around. They're not going up and down in value. The demand for what they do is growing. And as more and more people join the middle class around the world, more and more people demand those remedies. As we sort out our health insurance and how we distribute health care in the United States, more and more people will get access to these. But I would venture to say, for example, that not one person who has hepatitis C, who is in any way connected to our society, there may be some guy on the street sleeping under a bush who is disconnected. But for the most part, every single person who is connected to our society, who has hepatitis C, will have access to that drug. One way or the other, we're going to sort that out. But there's going to be no one missed.
So you're saying, as an investor, they need to understand that portion.
I'm saying that company that makes that remedy, in this case it's Gilead, but there are going to be others, Abivi and all of these others. What they do is becoming more valuable every day. The amount of money they earn is going to be higher. It's already getting to be more every day. Throughout the world, millions of people are joining the class of people that have access to those drugs. They will all be buying them from those companies that own the patents. So those companies are not bouncing up and down and becoming more and less valuable. Over the years, they're simply becoming more and more and more valuable because they make more and more and more money. Some people get that, and they simply buy the thing, and when people get even more panicked, they buy more of it. But then there's another whole bunch of people who are thinking, as I started this segment, thinking like a mammal, thinking from hour to hour, day to day, week to week, trying to figure out why the herd is running back and forth, buying and selling these stocks. They're going up, they're going down. We just finished 2 months of those companies selling off by 20%. None of that had anything to do with getting rich, and none of it had anything to do with actually what's going on in the business of those companies. Amory Bodine, you are a CPA and you are used to looking at companies not only as an investor in their stocks, but you're used to looking at them as companies, and you know that what's going on in the company itself has absolutely nothing to do with whether people like it or don't like it on any given day.
Amory, you have to step in because you will never get a piece of it. Go ahead.
I think the perception that people have is when they look at the stock market the first thing in the morning, the market opens at 9:30, and the market is going down, that sets their perception of what the whole economy is doing at this point.
Yeah, and this is because as individuals, they think that their conscious mind is actually them. And they also believe that the way they feel is a gauge of what's going on outside them. So when they get something, when they see something disturbing that gives them a shot of substance P, pain substance in their brain, they think that means there's something bad and that they should either fight or flight. They should either kill or run away, right? Because they're a mammal and they're thinking in 3 hours. So the fact is that what's going on around them has nothing to do with what they're feeling. What they're feeling is because of what they're thinking. What they're thinking is because of the immediate thing they saw on television. They're a creature of the herd, and when they see the herd get scared or they see the herd run, they have this overwhelming impulse to also run. And you watch a herd of cows and you're going to see it happening. But none of that has anything to do with getting rich. And that's my point in this segment, and it's why people find the market so complicated, because they watch what the rest of the herd is doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and they end up running back and forth trying to figure out what the herd's going to do, while a few of us get rich.
Daniel is talking about Dow Jones Industrial, it's minus 0.46%. S&P 500 minus 0.38% and NASDAQ minus 0.40%.
Roughly down 0.5% as the companies in there become more valuable.
We'll be right back after these important messages. Welcome back to Radio Wall Street. We are Radio Wall Street. The Money Man is with us, and Amory Bodine is also with us as CPA. And our discussion was there seems to be a conflict of feeling between the economy improving more and more becoming more valuable and Ukraine problems showing up. So Daniel, continue the discussion while we were off on air.
You want to do again what
Yes.
we were doing in the break?
Yes.
Actually, we should probably reverse it and air the break and then put some commercials on during the show, and it would probably be more entertaining.
Well, I think the conversation started because we were talking about how there's confusing information in the market right now. Because we see the economy improving, all signs are there that the economy is improving, getting stronger.
For example, some people are, because they watch television so much, they say, "Where is it? I thought the economy's bad. Where is it? We're in a recession." No, U.S. banks loosened their commercial lending spigots in the first 3 months. Much more lending, much more aggressive participating in the economy, much looser money. Companies showing the willingness to invest, and the money is there for them to invest. That means that's going to benefit disproportionately smaller companies who supply the big companies, because they're the ones that rely on being able to get bank financing. IBM, Citigroup, they don't have a problem. They can always get the money.
Right. And so when you look at the market and relative to, I think we confuse value sometimes with price. I think we confuse what's happening on the stock market with what's actually happening with companies like you talk about a Gilead who's producing such a high quality drug, and just also combine that with the possibility of the war going on in Ukraine, or not a war but the conflict, and other things that are just sending signals to people.
Well, this is what happens. It's not only that somebody's watching people running back and forth. There's one guy who looks and says, this company is making more money. You gave the example of the Gilead, but there's many of them.
Many.
But the one guy is watching and says, gee, this company has continued to become more valuable. It's making $5 billion more than anybody thought they were going to make even 3 months ago. And yet, the stock is down by 20%. So I don't care what happens. I can buy that company, and sooner or later, that company's price is going to reflect the profit that they're making. And historically, I know I'm going to be able to, based on the past, I know I will be able to get a lot more money for that company in a couple of years than it's worth now. So I'm going to buy it. And then, meanwhile, we all know that behind the scenes, there is this possible explosion of conflict in the Ukraine and with Russia. And it could interrupt. And there are a lot of people who, the minute the market goes up a little bit, they wish they were out, they're scared, and they are selling it. And there's a stalemate now. It's not one guy running back and forth. It's one guy buying it because he sees value, another guy wishing he was out, and as soon as it moves up a little bit, he sells it. And we don't seem to be running out of either the buyers or sellers, and hence the stalemate.
So there's really two, in my mind, there's the way I look at it, two ways, is that if the market is saying we're not going any place, but we see companies continue to grow and report good earnings, it's sending a message to somebody that's saying, look, the market should not be doing this, but yet I see these companies just keep growing and growing and doing better and better. And so they get conflicted, and they don't want to join in and participate in those good companies, so they lose out on the profits of a Boeing or a Gilead or something. So the other side of it is that if a good company, the price goes down, but the value's there, people go, ha-ha, you know, the market's going down, this is going down. I don't want to participate in it because I'm part of the market. I'm reading the market as going down, so I don't want to participate. Where in reality, that person should be looking at the value of that company and saying what a sweet spot this is to get into it and start participating in the market.
Now, there are people listening to us from all over the world because they're wanting to hear the market x-ray, because they actually, I describe what is happening, but they're wanting to try to use that to forecast what's going to be happening so they can make their next move. And because of the fact that buyers come in right away because the companies are becoming more valuable, we're not getting down far enough, and we're not getting enough of fear to get us to the point where it becomes such a bargain that we get this overwhelming rush of buying. The best thing that could happen to this stock market right now, and I don't see it at the moment, would be a move down of a few percent, where the people who are playing this back and forth, there's a bunch of people who are buying, a bunch of technicians, buying as soon as it goes down a little bit. If those people buy, but it keeps going down because there was a rush out of the market, went down a few more percent, it would get to the point where it really does become that bargain that will push it up all the way.
Folks, if you really want to understand what we're talking about, I'm looking at this book, Investing Without Borders, and the section we're in, it's page 120, Understanding the Indicators. When Daniel says move down few percent or not getting far down enough, that would specifically get his thoughts easily answered. So
on what? What you told them chapter? What page
it's
is it?
basically page 120
of Investing Without Borders: How 6 million investors can find profits in the global economy. It's a book I wrote several years ago, which in fact describes what's going on today almost exactly.
That's correct. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Radio Wall Street. We're broadcasting to the world on iHeart and in South Florida on terrestrial radio, 880 AM, The Biz. I want to let you get to know the people here in the studio with me because there's really fascinating people, and I talk so much that you almost can't get to know anything about them. But Amory Bodine is a CPA, but he's also very, very smart investment analyst. And Amory, let's talk about how you got to know how to win to start with. You were an athlete.
Yes, I played football in both high school and college. It's funny because my mom wouldn't let us play football before we got into high school. She thought we'd get hurt. So it was ninth grade that we started football, went all the way through college. And from my college experience, I actually got a tryout at the professional level. I played running back and punter in college, and I got a tryout in the pros as a punter with the Minnesota Vikings. So in that process of rising up to the level of competition, you just either decide to be a part of it and work harder and get better at what you do, or you get left behind. And athletics is a great area that you either rise to the top or you sit on the bench. And I always like playing football more than I like sitting on the bench.
How does a guy go from that? I ask this to the Nigerians and to a lot of the professional athletes who've come into finance. Usually what happens is there's almost no other business they can go in that pays enough. Once they're not in the big league sports, they either go into finance or they become an announcer. It looks like you're doing both. So tell me, how do you go from being a professional football player to being a CPA?
It's really kind of a fun story because the day I got cut by the Vikings for the last time, I was walking out of the facility in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and I happened to run into a reporter who I knew very well from many years, and he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to go talk to this guy who owns a CPA firm, because when I was in college, he said, when you're done with football, come and talk to me and I'll give you a job. So I'm going to go see if he's going to keep his word. And the newspaper guy wrote about this in the newspaper, and the owner of that company the next morning at breakfast read that I was coming looking for a job. And he said to his partner, he goes, well, it looks like we hired somebody today. So it was just kind of a fun way of making a transition from football into the world of finance accounting by just making one little quick phone call and we're off and running.
Now, from you and Alicia, there are other CPAs who actually work with people on their finances, but generally what they do is they just buy mutual funds, and they are really just a conduit and a salesman, and they don't really know anything, because it takes two different states of mind to be an accountant versus a businessman and investor. So when you got into the middle of being the CPA, you found that you really were an investor more than how did that happen?
Well, it kind of falls in the same perspective, is that accountants don't look at lots of companies as a whole. We look at one company at a time, and so we have a tendency to analyze that company, and we do the books for that company and the tax return for that company. So it was just by that training that when you start looking at investing, that you would start looking at the individual companies as opposed to an index or an ETF or something, or a mutual fund where they just throw a whole mess of companies in together. I could never just put my arms around a mutual fund or a stock index, because I want to look at each one of those companies and understand what each company is doing before I invest my money into it. So it just naturally led to more of by discipline, by looking at each one, their financials, their management, their market share, what that company is doing, to decide, do I want to invest in that company versus some other company, as opposed to investing in a mutual fund or an ETF.
And the thing is that there are different things to do at different times. And the thing I like about what the two of you do, Frischberg and Bodine, the things that you do are really set according to the times and what is a good deal. You don't just look for some pie chart of investments and just keep them forever, and you have a bunch of offsetting investments and you're pretty wrong all the time. Instead, what you do is appropriate investments for the times, which I think is exciting, because I hardly ever see anybody that actually knows how to do that. I see a lot of people that know how to do it, but they're all very rich and they're all in New York City. And I don't see anybody except you two who actually do that with real people.
I think you have to have a curiosity also. You just can't have a preset notion of what the market is all about or how investing is. You can't pick up a book and just read it and say, okay, I'm going to invest this way. I mean, there's a curiosity about industries. Are you, oil and gas just fascinates me. Energy, all that fracking and oil and gas going on. So I'm studying about that market and becoming more and more knowledgeable. I have a background in healthcare. Both my parents were in healthcare, so by default I have understanding of nursing care and hospitals and such. So those are things that I think just drive you to become more and more curious about what you want to do in your investing world.
We're going to be right back. Stick around, because toward the end of the program, I'm going to get a little time to talk to the person who, to me, is the most interesting person in the room. But I'll tell you, the first room I ever walked into that she was in, I already thought that. And that is the beautiful Alicia. We'll be back right after this, and we'll get to the story of how Alicia became what she is now, the Chief Investment Strategist, head of the investment committee of Firstberg and Bodine Private Clients. We'll do that toward the end of the program. We're going to be back with a special feature right after this break. Stay with me. Welcome back to the Money. Well, it is actually Radio Wall Street, but this is actually the Money Man Report, because it's my segment. And I just want to tell you that we are still broadcasting to the world on iHeartRadio and still on terrestrial radio in your car and your home on 880 AM The Biz. And just to the story we were telling earlier in the program, as soon as the stock market goes down a little bit, a bunch of people who are dying to get in come and buy it. As it moves up a little bit, they eventually sell it. But today we started out a little bit below, and we've picked up 4 or 5 points on the S&P 500. Depending on what you're watching, you will see within the next few minutes that the market is almost getting back up, because those people did come in and buy. Well, I've been looking at value in different ways. You see, I don't, investing isn't individual things. I'm not a stock guy. My job has been to comment on stocks and write about stocks, and that's because that's what I'm known for. I did a lot of it on television, where they have very fragmented subjects. It's a show about this, it's a show about this. I like value. I just like good deals. So one of the things, I was talking to somebody who is a curator, one of the best, talking about art. And art is something that if you look at everybody who's got really any money to speak of, a lot of their money is kept in art. Well, they don't do that because they're stupid, and they don't do it because they're dilettantes. They do it because there's value there. And because there's not all these crazy herd running back and forth, it doesn't fluctuate every day, and so they feel comfortable because they don't get a statement every month showing them that it went up or down. And imagine what would happen if somebody sent you a note every day about the transaction on your house, of the transaction that was done on your block. Somebody sold their house for $50,000 less, somebody sold their house for $50,000 more, and you think your house is going up and down every day, and you would end up with an ulcer. The reason that doesn't happen is not because the house doesn't fluctuate in value every day, it's because nobody sends you the note. That's why people enjoy art as well. I want to introduce you to Susana Baker, who's one of the most interesting experts on art for investment and for money that I've ever met. Susana, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. As for the Radio Wall Street and for the Money Man listeners, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And for my Art Talk listeners that are tuning in today to our new slot early in the morning, 1 hour earlier, 10:30 every Tuesday, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to bring great, exciting news about the art world from the canvas to the red carpet.
So there's some things that I was talking to you about at dinner that I want to share with the audience, because the first thing I was asking you about, and you know, you've shown me some stuff that I think of as not really even being art. You know, a guy takes a toilet paper and rolls it out, and there's a very democratic definition of art. I'm sure people do pay for that. I'm not saying they don't, but I was asking you, how does something actually become valuable? What happens? The guy's a great painting. Nobody ever heard of him. His paintings are worth nothing. He comes out of art school. He's the best artist that ever went to the School of Visual Arts, and nobody knows about him. Nobody cares. His art's not worth anything. How does it become valuable?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, as I have been 5 years in the Miami art contemporary scene, I have seen the same thing you're saying. Sometimes you look at a pile of candy like Felix Gonzalez Torres that's showing at the De La Cruz, which is worth $5 million. And literally, it's just a pile of candy, mints. But it's the concept. And what happens to an artist that does become known is because he gets critiqued. And normally you get critiqued by very famous art columnists. Normally the New York Times is very important in catapulting a career for an artist. Once you get critiqued, you also then get appraised. So as you sell, you get appraised. And so there's a site where you could go to find out what this artist, what was his last praise, what did he sell for? And as you get collected by important collectors, that also works in the combination of making you known. Shows, museum shows, very important. So the combination of getting
So for example, if the guy was nothing but Mrs. De La Cruz or Mrs. Bacardi bought his painting,
that's very important.
that would make him worth more money right away?
It's definitely in the right direction because you want to be, for instance, some people in the art world might not consider Jay-Z being a top collector of art, and he is. So it's a very, yes, it is. Collectors that are important, that have a wealthy portfolio and diversify in art are very important.
Hold this thought because I got to stop for a little break. No one wants a commercial. Everyone wants to hear what you're going to say next. But maybe the commercial's about me. Who knows? We'll be right back.
Okay.
Well, the Money Man Report resumes. And the stock market almost got up to being exactly where it started and sold off a little bit. I think you're going to find that I'll venture a guess and say it will end up a little bit up on the day. That isn't really going to help anybody make any money, but I'll tell you what I'm interested in. I'm interested in real value. Susana Baker is with me, and I asked her to come because I had the most I'm interested in art as an investment, particularly because I think we're in the final year of a bull market, and I'm looking at other things that rich people already know about, but I want to bring it to regular people. And I've done that with biotechnology. I've done that with a lot of things, and real estate. And I want to art is something that's actually accessible to people, and it starts out sometimes not that expensive, but becomes very expensive. How does that happen? A guy gets out of art school. Forget about the pile of candy. Let's take a guy that can really draw. He's really good, right? And he's painting beautiful, whatever, pictures of fish, sunsets, pictures of people. How does he become valuable? How does his painting?
Well, as I had said before, being critiqued is number one. Being collected by top
How does a
collectors.
guy become critiqued? He came out of art school. There's a million guys.
It has to be. You got to go through the gallery system. In here in the United States, we have a protocol of systems. So when you're an artist and you make a series of work, you will go and you will show it to a gallery dealer, an art dealer, and so you will go to. You would have to go to a dealer that probably starts emerging to make career. An emerging artist is someone who comes out of school and he's just starting. He
So
has
this
no
would be
history.
like going to go to the comedy store and do 10 minutes at the comedy store.
Exactly. Well,
Okay, so you're going to go to a gallery, and the gallery is maybe going to have time, maybe not.
It's a little different than a comedy store because you're going to try to do your homework, and you're going to try to go to a dealer that represents your type of work, your expertise, whether it be recycled materials, newfound objects, whether it be sculpture, photography. You're going to do your homework, and you're going to try to hit the dealers that have monthly shows, that have a big database, that know how to make a catalog for the artist.
So all artists don't know how to do that, just like all companies and just like all football players from high school don't make it to the pros. Which guy knows how to do that? Does somebody have to show him how to do it?
No.
How does he
Many
know?
artists don't know how to do it, and the funny thing is about it, 4.5 years ago, when I started the Art Experience, which is our bread and butter company, it was to represent and bring people to the art world. You know, Miami has grown and is the epicenter of the arts internationally. All eyes are on us, especially when the PAM just opened, Perez Art Miami Museum. That brought everyone. And so if you're an artist or you're from anywhere, everybody wants to know about the Miami art scene. Wynwood has totally blown and exploded in the art. We have over 8 galleries. Before Art Basel, which chose Miami Beach to be the center stage during the first week of December, we already have 3 major
We should
art
tell
collectors.
people that mostly everybody know there's a bunch of smart people, but Art Basel is actually a big Swiss Central European art show that everybody in the world knows about, and it's really cool with movie stars and everything.
It is
and
the
so
most
Art
important.
Basel is kind of like the eastern branch, the western branch.
Yeah, well, what happened was 13 years ago, Art Basel, which is from Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland, they decided to get
Basel,
closer.
by the way, it's called Basel
Basel.
in Europe.
Oh, okay. And so then they decided to get closer to the South American collector. And so they chose Miami Beach to be that place. And that was done 13 years ago. It brings now 100,000 people in a 4-day period. It is one of the most important contemporary fairs, and we're lucky we have it here in Miami and Miami Beach. There were rumors that it was going to move because, as we know, the Miami Beach Convention Center is going to be demolished to bring in a new convention center. So I was very privy to have Bob Goodman, who is the Florida representative of Art Basel, and I asked him on my radio show a couple of weeks ago, is the rumor true? Are you going to Los Angeles? You're not coming into Miami Beach after 2015? And he said, absolutely not. We love the weather. We love the people. We love the support. We have a very supportive art community here, which is unbelievable. So to your question, Dan, art raises in value as people that are smart, just like the market. They do follow herds also in the art world. And so, for instance, there's so many Andy Warhols, Keith Harings, the pop culture that really exploded in America in the 60s and 70s. Now here you have art again accessible to the young. We're building new young collectors through the gallery system here in New York City, in San Francisco, in Miami. We've become just as important as all the other major art markets.
All right, let me get to the crux of this, and people are going to get to know you a lot better, because I think just as important as real estate, just as important as stocks, things that become more valuable are where we want to put money, right? How can a person who doesn't want to spend $1 million right now, how can I find the thing that may only cost $1,000 or $10,000 now, that would be the equivalent of buying a biotech company that's going to be worth $50,000 in a few years, going to be worth $1 million maybe when I get old? How can I find that? How can I know which one? Is it that speculative?
It is that speculative. I actually know that in our market right now in Miami, what's become very big in the sense of there's the fine arts, there's photography. Photography has always held. It's doesn't barely go down. Your Bert Stearns, and I mean, he just passed away. That's when he was alive, his pictures were 20,000. Right now in our market in Miami, as I see it, because I'm a new, I'm just getting into this 5 years old, so I'm still a baby, but it's so exciting and I've embraced it. And we have a lot of urban art. We are known for our fabulous murals. And so when those muralists go on canvas, that's definitely a direction to go. Your Shepard Fairies, your Retina. Here's a guy, Retina, who just did beautiful murals. He uses Cholo alphabet, and Cholo alphabet is a dialogue used by East LA American Mexicans that when they want to write a message to their rival gang, they tag a bridge or they write on a wall. That's what's tagging means in Cholo alphabet, so the police cannot read it. So here's this artist who takes this Cholo alphabet, puts it on canvas, makes it fabulous, makes it his own, and now he just signed a deal with Louis Vuitton. You can't buy a retina, you got to go on a waiting list. Here's Mark Bradford, who does collage remnants with found paper and billboards and poster boards, and he uses these large canvases and he sands them and he keeps collaging, putting more paper, sanding. I mean, now his canvases are worth $1 million, and to buy one, you have to invest $600,000 to a charity, and then maybe he'll think of selling you one.
I want to get back to that. I only have a couple of seconds here, but I still want to get back to, is there a way that I could reliably, see, I buy a company, they make drugs, they make a drug that I know everybody wants, so I know it's going to become more valuable. Is there a way that I can buy a painting that I could be that certain that it's going to become more valuable because it's there? Is there somewhere on the path that I can say, this guy's on the way, I can, how could you do that?
Well, there's two ways. There's a mid-career artist that has several shows, been appraised, been critiqued, and so that's an artist you might want to follow and buy. Or you could take like the penny stocks, like they say. You're not mid-career. You see them following. They're getting good shows. They're starting to get good reviews, and that's where you probably could get $500, $1,000, and then they become to the point of that mid-career artist. So it's really getting involved and following it. And art is always, you could buy it on speculation, or you could buy it because you can't live without it.
Do you feel that you could take thousands of dollars and make them into millions by buying art with what you know now?
I definitely believe that there's definitely a blog we could start, and we could post things and take it from there.
All right, I got to stop for a break. Very, very interesting, and I'm going to have you on a lot more if I can. If it, you,
well,
okay?
I'm hoping every Tuesday Art Talk will come to the Money Man. Every Tuesday at 10:30.
All right, we're going to be back right after this break. Please stick around. Welcome back to the Money Man Report. Radio Wall Street continues, and we are still broadcasting to the world on iHeart, and we are still on terrestrial radio, 880 AM. The Biz. The beautiful Alicia has been, it was her idea to have a radio show in the first place 20 some odd years ago, and it was her idea to do it on the scale that we ended up doing it. And Alicia, when we started, you didn't really start out as an investor at all, but talk about how you became who you are now.
You always attract what you put into your brain, always, and I am a big believer of that. When I was single, I was alone here. I came from the Philippines. I didn't see electricity. But to me, it was not enough because I said, look at everybody, how they multiply their wealth. So I said, there's something I'm not doing right. So I have specially sewed in my shirt and something that fit in an index card that I have 10 companies that I wanted to participate in the stock market. I studied, I learned, and I asked to myself, what's the highest profession I can learn in the United States?
So when I met you and I held the door for you and we began this romance, I was shocked to find out that the minute you sat down with me, you started asking me about these stocks. And the first thing you said to me after I answered you and you liked my answer, you said, if you're so smart, where is the money?
Because I am extremely direct. When you know me very well,
and
I don't run and walk around.
I said my problem isn't money, my problem is women. and so Alicia said, well, I'm not worried about women. Women are not a problem anymore. Now I want to know about the money.
He's been married for how many years? How many times?
28. I've been married. I was married a couple of times before that, yes. But I was just, those were warm-up rehearsals. I want to skip because we only have a couple of minutes. For many, many years, we had an investment committee, and we had different people, interns and partners and everything, that were talking about how to invest hundreds of millions of dollars. And we would have these meetings every day. And a lot of them were on a little squawk box that we used to have, and you were there with me in that squawk box, and I'm conducting this investment meeting. And for years we were doing that. And as a matter of fact, we had a newsletter because we had a writer who once a week would actually take notes on the meeting, and then he would write the newsletter that was our newsletter that people subscribed to for $1,800 a year. And we had that was just an idea like picking up the sawdust at a carpenter shop and make a little bit more money with it. So Alicia was there, and I was running it very often from my home office on this little squawk box, and people were in the office in different places having these meetings. Now, after about 10 or 15 years of listening to these meetings, after a while, at the end of the meeting, Alicia would say, you know, you should have said this, and you should have said that, and you missed this. And a lot of times, she was actually exactly right. Sometimes it was such a good idea that I would call back everybody and say, you know what, I just had a great idea. and then what happened was she actually became even more confident, and she actually started to write me notes while the meeting was going on, telling me this idea or that idea that I should say. And after a while, chauvinist that I am, I finally said, you know, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but why don't you, if you have an idea, why don't you say something, right? I'm the CEO, nobody can, right? And so she actually started to participate in these meetings. Now, I am an older guy, and I go to the beach, and I'm retired, and Alicia is now the chief investment strategist of what has evolved into Frischberg and Bodine's private clients, where they actually do a fabulous job. But how did you ever know to do this?
Because not only that, as I said, you attract what you put into your brain. Not only that you learn from one person, you learn from so many people. So what I did is, it was my mission to get the top strategists, top investment analysts to come on the radio and actually share what they thought of the market. And from there, you take in so many ideas and you boil down to take it to higher level.
And actually, I should tell people that they liked her much more than they liked me. And
no, you just underestimate yourself. They love you 100%.
I remember being on a telephone meeting with Dr. Arthur Laffer, who said, "Where's Alicia?" And I said, "She's not here today." And he said, "Why don't we take a break and we'll continue this when she gets back?"
Oh.
This has actually happened.
So, folks, as I always said, you attract what you feed your brain. And just be focused. If you want success in the stock market, you take whatever is important to you. Take a concept that you believe in. For me, I take you as my role model, and I take what you learn, and I take it and process it my own style.
Well, you're my role model, too. I only knew how to do one thing really well. The rest of it, how to live, I learned from Alicia. That's all the time I've got today. I'm going to have to table this until tomorrow. And I thank you all very much. Thank you, Susana. Thank you, Amory Bodine. Thank you, Alicia. And thank you all here at the studio at 8:80 a.m. The Biz. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.